Good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. I am in Council Bluffs, Iowa today, headed into South Dakota as I travel across the country with my son JC, or mine and Kay's, rightfully. And we're going to Tacoma, Washington, where he'll be reporting for his first permanent duty station with the U.S. Army. And so I'll be in South Dakota tomorrow and hopefully filming there as well. So we're still doing Exodus. We're doing chapter 14 today. And it's the story of the crossing of the Red Sea. And that piece is really interesting because almost 2 million Hebrews walked out of Egypt. That tells us that there were 600,000 men. And so if we extrapolate that out, we get around 2 million people walking out into the desert. And as they flee, God does not send them. There's a more direct route into the promised land, but it's a fortified route. And God knows the children of Israel, he knows they're not ready yet to take a fight. And so he sends them off, interestingly enough, at first to Mount Sinai. And so as he leads them on, you can imagine this group that is just going as fast as they can go. Scriptures tell us there's a pillar of fire at night and a cloud in the day out leading them where they're going. And so we see this. It says that then Pharaoh realizes, we've lost our working force. So we're going to go get them. It's amazing to me they forget the death that he always brought on them to say, let them go. So it says, Pharaoh was almost upon them. The Israelites looked and they saw the Egyptians close behind. And in terror they clamored to the Lord for help. They said to Moses, were there no graves in Egypt that you have brought us here to perish in the wilderness? See what you have done to us by bringing us out of Egypt. This is not just what we meant when we said in Egypt, leave us alone, let us be slaves to the Egyptians. Better for us to serve as slaves to the Egyptians than to die out here. And here's the crux of this whole story. In the middle of this, the children of Israel have to decide, are they going to trust God? Or are they going to trust what they see, what they understand, what they have known for a long time? Trust their own abilities of getting by and surviving? Are they going to trust God who says, I'll be with you? Said, it's amazing to me that they have already forgotten the Passover meal and that event. And we don't know exactly the timing of this. I don't think their trip, 2 million people to the Red Sea, just happens overnight. It's not like us getting in our car and driving from Greenwood to Abbeville. And so as they start to move, all of a sudden they don't see a logical piece for how they can rationalize it in their mind. Because they're used for battles being fought by men in valleys, and the biggest army wins. And they're not an army. And Pharaoh has the biggest, baddest army in the world. He's bringing the biggest piece, the most fearful piece of equipment. Over 600 chariots are bearing down on them. And yet, in the midst of this, God is still leading them on. It's like, and through Moses, he's saying, go, go. Moses answers, he says, have no fear, stand firm, and see the deliverance that the Lord will bring to you this day. He says, for sure as you see the Egyptians now, you shall never see them again. And so they're moving and they're scared. And then all of a sudden we see them. Can you imagine what it must have looked like? He said all these people running back and running breathlessly without a glance backward. They're running toward the sea, and there they came to an abrupt halt. This was the end. Death was waiting. Leaders of the group, urged on by Moses, pushed forward. Don't be afraid. Go into the water. Into the water. Yet according to Moses suddenly ordered everyone to halt. He says, wait a minute. Think. Take a moment to reassess what you are doing. Enter the sea not as frightened fugitives, but free men of God, led by him. So Moses raises his hands just as he's been ordered by God. Says that ground is no longer soft and mushy. It's not even covered by water. It's dry ground. And 2 million people cross it with Moses with his arms held wide, holding back the water because of God. As they do, and they start getting across to the other side, it's called the Reed Sea, R-E-E-D. And then all of a sudden, they start crossing, the Israelites, the Hebrews have made it, and the Egyptians are not far behind. They're starting. I don't know if Moses was having to hold his hands up and walk through, or is he's the last one to go across, or what? What I do know is that scriptures tell us that as the Egyptian chariots started in, they started to bog down almost immediately. What had been dry, what had been mud, turned to dry ground, is now turned back into mud again. And so in the midst of this, we start to see, are the people going to trust God for their deliverance? It tells us they get to the other side and the water comes down and it covers the Egyptians. That they are covered by the water. They're gone. The amazing piece is Pharaoh's army tried to cross on muddy ground. And yet the Hebrews, the Israelites, they passed on dry ground because of what God did. So in the midst of our ups and our downs, and us not being able to see a way through, we're going to trust God for him to fight the battles for us, because it's going to be interesting. God's going to have to fight lots of battles for them. Or we're going to stand fast in our faith. Let him lead us and show us the way. That is a strong piece. To allow God to lead us, to have trust in where he leads us, even when it is difficult, it doesn't look like it's the spot that we should be or how we're going to survive. God is there with us, always. I pray that as we try to move forward to a new normal, that we'll trust that God is going to do some amazing things for us and for him and his kingdom through all of this. Amen. God bless.